But do you feel like, I mean, what you do, like substance abuse counseling, I think
that's important work. I just don't.
You just don't get to do that much because of all the restrictions.
Yeah, the frustration is that because of life on the prison camp is always being interrupted by whenever they have to bring in a truck, whenever they have to do something, whenever they have a lot of movement around, the guys have to kind of stay in their quarters, and we don't provide the services in the quarters. I mean, that would make sense if they had a group room in the quarters and we just went in there. We could do that several times a day and have it work out. But right now we have to rely on, okay, there's no conflict with custody needs. I mean, custody needs are foremost. I mean, that's keeping custody, keeping control, that stuff is the foremost mission of the prison. That's why those people are there. It's not to learn substance abuse. It's to be controlled and to keep the public safe.
Yeah.
Right. Being able to give them substance abuse, that's my mission.
Yeah.
So my mission is secondary.
Yeah.
And that's where the frustration comes in.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've got these skills and this knowledge base that would help me with my mission, but my mission is thwarted due to the primacy of the custody.
And that's sad for you, but it's also sad for them because like they could be helped.
They've earned it.
No, I know, but I mean, like, but I mean, presumably
they've earned not being trusted. One of my guys last week, he had done a great job in the group. He successfully completed. He attended a lot, and he was and he basically said, you know, the day before he graduated, he said, you know, all this stuff is all well and good, but I'm just not ready to change. My theme song is still going to be, you know, when you walk out of a store and not everything has been, not all the devices have been disabled, and it makes that beeping sound. He said, that's still going to be my theme song. And whenever I hear that, I'm on the run. I'm just going to continue to be stealing. And darn it, if he didn't go into our restroom on his way out the door, his final way out the door, and take our hand soap. Why?
He's just like a pathological.
He's a pathological thief. That's what gives meaning to his life somehow. It's pathetic, but it's certainly consistent. I mean, and he's honest about it.
Yeah.
I'm a thief.
That's really like, that's sad to me. That's sad, but
it is sad. I mean, that's that some people just feel like that's the best they can do. That's the best version of himself.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought is like, what happened to him in his life that you know, that because I don't think that's like, obviously he was not raised in a situation where he was having those 5 areas of development where he felt he had meaningful roles to fulfill, right? Like that behavior is obviously trying to fulfill one of those deprivations.
Right.
And that's sad that there's so many people.
Because if you look at the Universe 25 and you look at these guys in prison, it's pretty much Universe 25.
Yeah.
Food, clothing, place to stay, relative security. I mean, unless they're hurting each other, they're relatively secure. But they end up hurting each other. They end up having they're miserable, and they take their misery out on each other.
Yeah,
In-
but they don't
in-
have.
Instead of having a positive energy to apply to a pro-social activity, they feel like all they can do is be disruptors.
Are
All
they
they
my husband and I were talking about this. This is something that like I feel like this is really um it would get me canceled if I cared about that kind of thing, if I was like, in the public eye. But I was saying like I feel like we should I am pro like slave labor for prisons. Like we should make people in prison work for I said
they
like
want they want to.
I said
They want to.
yeah, but I was gonna ask, like, so the people in your prison, do they get like working roles, like jobs and stuff?
If they can behave themselves long enough, yeah. Yeah, if they can overcome their tendencies to be thieves and aggressors, yeah, they can earn jobs. They
Yeah.
used to have uh it used to be that they would take people out on buses and take them and clean the roads.
That's what I was saying. We need more. I was saying
They
I
loved that. They
yeah,
loved that. You know why it stopped?
because they couldn't be trusted to
Some
not.
well-meaning person felt that was demeaning to
Mm,
these guys to have them out having to clean the roads. They felt that was cruel and unusual punishment, and so they made that illegal
yeah.
for these guys to be put to any use. These guys want to be of use.
Yeah.
They've never had I mean, these guys are the generation of rats that are already over the hump.
Yeah.
I mean,
They already have the death of the spirit.
the spirit of positive living has already died in a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
And their society has already started well on its way to collapsing. They nevertheless continue to have a hunger for a purposeful life.
Yeah.
But well-meaning people say, oh no, you can't go out and clean the road. That's demeaning to you. That's cruel and unusual. It's like, is it? Or is it, thank God I have something to do to help me pass the time, and I can be outside of this barrack. I don't have to smell the gas of 30 other people who are, or be around 30 other people, many of whom are trying to get high on whatever they can all the time, because their consciousness is so aggravating to them that they want to obliterate it by whatever means is possible. They either want to sleep away the day, or they want to just get high and be, out of their minds.
Yeah.
It really is sad and desperate.
Yeah.
But it does show the value of work. It gives you something to do while we're waiting for Jesus to come back.
Because
otherwise what would we be doing? What better do we have to do?
Yeah. I was saying to my husband, like, I was talking about how there's just constant construction on one part of the road. And I was like, I feel like we should fire all these people, all these government employed construction people, and just put the prisoners to work doing the construction. Because I'm like, they can't be doing a worse job. Like, I feel like the people who do construction for like the government hired construction, they do such a bad job. I'm like, the prisoners can't do any worse. We should just force them to do it all, because they've lost their.
We should allow them. We should allow them.
Yeah, no,
and actually incentivize it. They want to earn money. They want to work, and yet they're not able to because society doesn't view them as being somebody who's capable of doing that.
Do you think prisons should be better places, or do you think that they should be worse to try to de-incentivize people from recommitting crimes again, recidivism?
I guess both. I think there ought to be clear ways and just ways for people to earn themselves back into society, but people who consistently fail
Yeah.
at being able
Trustworthy.
be social and not be aggressive and not take advantage of weaker people. People like that need to keep drifting down into more and more segregated. There needs to be more distinctions between maximum security, medium security, and minimal security.
Yeah.
There needs to be super max.
Yeah.
Where people and those people need to be not be protected from each other. They need to face the hell that they have chosen. You know, but give people plenty of opportunities to earn their way
To avoid that.
Back into society. The sad thing is 5 out of 6 of the guys who end up in prison, in a long-term prison, 5 out of 6 are going to recidivize and be back in prison within 9 years. That's the statistics. I tell these guys that all the time, and it's like, not me. Oh no, I've had enough. This is enough for me. I want to be out. But some of them are like, yeah, I'll probably steal again if I only get 20 months. That gives me 20 months where I don't have to worry about working. I don't have to worry about feeding myself. I don't have to worry about anything. I get 3 hots and a cot, and I know I can do this time. Yeah, is it the best? No. Do I prefer to be out? Yeah. But I'll probably steal again.
Have you seen Catch Me If You Can?
Yeah, the movie with Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah. There's a scene at the end of that where he ends up going to prison in, oh gosh, some sort of like
Eastern... I bet he'd be good at it.
He goes to prison in some sort of like Eastern Bloc country though, where it's like he's in a cell alone. It's a dirt floor, like there's no bed, and he's starved so much. And this is all based on a real story. The guy who it's based on is actually really interesting. But he lost like 20% of his body weight in like the few months that he was there because they just like didn't feed him. And I'm to my husband the other day, I was like, if our prisons were like that, if it was like, you don't get internet, you don't get TV in prison, you don't get to like hang out with other people. I mean, like he said, that's not constitutional to have like solitary confinement basically all the time. But if it's like prison is truly a bad place that you don't want to go back, like I do think that there are some people who are just so pathological that they would probably still commit crimes and like have some aspect of recidivism. But there's got to be some people who are like, yeah, prison's not really that bad. I get fed, I'm sheltered. Like, yeah, it's like you don't have to worry about things. I wonder if at least some of those people would not commit crimes again.
I think a lot of them actually feel that way. Most of them are too ashamed to say it. Some of them are honest enough to say, yeah, I get 3 hots and a cot, and it's like on the old Andy Griffith show, the guy that the drunk who had the keys to the cell, and he would just when he needed a place to stay, he would just let himself in. He would open the cell and he'd go in and sleep it off. That's what he can used as a home base. It
was his hotel,
and that's a lot of those guys do that. A lot of them have severe emotional problems. A lot of them have post-traumatic stress from ACEs, adverse childhood experiences that are very difficult, very emotionally difficult. It takes a lot of courage to look at those things in your life and try to understand how that's affected you. It's heartbreaking for other people to hear about it, and it's certainly difficult for them to take a look at it for themselves. But
what do you think the difference is between, so like I have people in my life who have a lot of those childhood ACEs, right? Like a lot, they score high on that ACE inventory. But they're like relatively successful people who can be in the world and not commit crimes and are very like resilient. And then there's people who have a lot of those aces and they are not that way. And they either get into drugs or commit crimes or whatever it is. Like, what do you think the difference is between those people?
I don't know. I really don't.
I wish I could know.
Maybe some of them had at least somebody in their life who showed them, or who exemplified dealing with adversity in an honest and effective way, instead of just being a victim or being a perpetrator, or just giving in to the that whole negativity of just avoidance and refusing to face things head on, refusing to be responsible. Some people like the idea that they're victims of circumstances that are beyond their control, and they refuse to think of it any other way. And the longer that they continue to invest in that notion, the harder it is to break out of it. Because at some point, if you say, oh crap, I spent 30 years acting like this because of ACEs, but I didn't have to. Now you're not only resentful to the people who
hurt you in whatever way,
who gave you those ACEs in the first place, you're also resentful to yourself for wasting 30 years of your life by not ever taking a step back and saying, can't I make this better?
Yeah.
Can't I do something better and different? Can't I, get some of the things in my life that help me to be resilient? Can't I develop more positive coping than this?
Yeah.
And that's
in a lot of ways
really hard to do.
In a lot of ways, it's like really easy to be a victim, like
it is.
It's way easier to not take responsibility. Like I see
a
even
lot
like
more fun.
There's some people in my on my husband's side of the family who, they're siblings and they grew up in a very similar environment. Obviously, it wasn't the same environment, but one of them is like very, no nonsense, good at coping with things, and is just like takes responsibility and is like a normal like adult who's able to live the life. And then one of them is just like has been a complete victim their whole life, doesn't ever take responsibility for things. Something is always somebody else's fault. And it's like, I wonder if part of that is like an inborn personality thing. Like, I don't think it's totally that, because I don't want to think that like you're just born that way and you're never going to be able to get out of it. But
you can't change. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do
saying you can't change means that you are a victim of
of your personality or whatever.
I think you always have to assume I have some control over this. Sure. I just have to figure out where my control is, and I have to have the courage to change those things that I can. There are certain things that are beyond my control. I can't change that. And I need the serenity to accept those things. But I need the courage to change.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem comes in, is some people don't have the courage to change. And I don't know why that is, because it does vary in families. I talk to a lot of these guys and they're like, yeah, my siblings went through the same thing as I did. And I'm the only one who's a felon, who's been a consistent felon. I'm the black sheep. And then there's others. There's another guy who said, out of the 7 kids in my family, at one point, all 7 of us kids were in prison at the same time.
Wow.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, something bad.
And he definitely identifies. When I was 8 years old, we had lived with my father until that time. At that point, my mother
Got custody
went with another guy.
Oh, okay.
Decided that she was going to follow this other guy, and so we went and we lived with this other guy. He wasn't my dad. He didn't care about me. My mother stopped caring about us, and was just interested in her new relationship. And so we had to fend for ourselves. There was a lot of times when we didn't have any food in the cupboard. We learned to steal in order to have food.
Because when you're a kid, it's not like you can work.
No,
your option is basically stealing or going hungry.
Yeah, we needed to learn how to steal, so we would go into other people's houses. That was a pattern that got established before they were old enough to even abstractly consider the pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
It was something that had been set before.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about in Universe 25. Little rats who don't get socialized to have certain patterns of behavior, to be able to have a courtship, to be able to practice gratification delay, to be able to control impulses and delay impulses, to be able to have long-term consideration of their well-being rather than just instant gratification.
Yeah.
Little rats that don't learn that and don't have it to teach.
Yeah.
And so the entire society collapses. Now, is that where our society is going? Do we have rampant sexual perversity and
abandonment of parenthood,
abandonment of parental responsibilities and obligations? Yeah. Do we have incredible violence? Yeah. Where bullies pick on other people. There's already a lot of that in human society.
Yeah.
Now,
if you think about,
do I think that we're doomed? Has the spirit already died? For some folks, I think it has.
Yeah.
But I don't believe it for everybody.
Yeah. And I
don't believe it has anything to do with overpopulation, Washington Post.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a matter of too many people. It's a matter of not enough purpose.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that happened in that Universe 25 was cannibalism. And, if you think about what cannibalism is, it's really like treating another person as a means to an end.
A commodity.
Yeah. And really, like, what is abortion if it's not that same mindset of like my fellow human beings, my kids are things that I can discard at will. Like I think that's really like a cannibalistic mindset.
And the cannibalistic mindset, I mean, cannibalism is just one aspect of the selfish overvaluation of my existence.
Yeah.
Without any consideration that I didn't get here on my own. And do I have an obligation to society to take care of younger people, to maybe give birth to younger people and to raise them up? Or do I just want to have pets?
Yeah.
That was interesting that recently they had this whole thing about Pope Francis. I don't know if you saw that on the news. Pope Francis had said, so many people are selfish these days. They just want pets. They don't want to put in the work of loving people who are complex and demanding and and difficult. And they don't want to do that at all. And so they just opt out of it.
Yeah.
They're looking at people as a commodity that is not, that they do the cost benefit analysis.
Yeah.
And instead of realizing that the benefit is eternal and infinite, they say, oh, this kid's just going to be a pain in my butt. I'm not going to be able to go traveling. I'm not going to be able to go to Paris and hang out with my boyfriend. So I'm going to have an abortion, or I'm just going to practice contraception, and I'm not going to use my life the way that God intended it to be used. My will be done.
Yeah.
Which is the original sin from the Garden of Eden. My will be done, not thy will be done. My will be done.
And even before that.
And that's still the echo through all these millennia.
Yeah, even before my daughter and I we read the Baltimore Catechism, and so the first sin ever committed was from, both my kids can tell you, or both my older kids can tell you, the bad angels, the angels who said, I will not serve. That was the message. And so the Baltimore Catechism makes very clear that every time we sin, we say to God, I will not serve. And that's what is parenthood besides serving? I mean, it's constant serving. Like, so
yet it's probably the best thing that you can do with your life.
Because Jesus came to serve.
The most meaning, it's the most meaningful thing that you can do with your life. If you want to have a reason to live, have somebody that you need to continue to take care of.
Yep.
It's
Absolutely.
Interesting because I was reading about somebody the other day. Franz Ferdinand. You know Franz Ferdinand, like the Archduke of Austria, who got killed, and it started the whole First World War. He was apparently riding in some sort of coach when somebody opened fire on them, and he was riding next to his wife. His wife's name was Sophie, and she also was shot. And he said to her, Sophie, do not die. You have to take care of the children. I thought that was amazing. It's like, don't die because you're too precious.
Yeah.
Don't die because you've got something to live for. You've got something to do. You still have a mission and a purpose in life.
Yeah.
So you can't die.
Yeah. Did she live?
And no, she died.
Oh, okay.
And he subsequently died too. But it was interesting because they said that his last words, they asked him, are you in pain? And he was already in despair. And he just said, it's nothing. It's nothing. He just repeated those words over. It's nothing. It's nothing.
Wow.
Until he died.
That's a bleak ending. Wow.
That is a bleak ending,
Yeah.
but it's, that's assassination is pretty bleak.
Yeah, that's true.
It's hard to make that a happy story.
Yeah.
But it maybe is a meaningful story in that at that point, I mean, he was the Emperor of Austria. He had some reasons to be selfish, and he probably had a lot of people saying, oh, you're awesome.
Yeah.
You're the best. You don't need to worry about anybody else. He was worried about his kids and his wife.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my husband and I, we're always making fun of people who say like they're fur babies, or call their children or call their pets their children and stuff.
Yeah.
We like laugh about that every time. But I wanted to, I guess we should probably wrap up because I gotta.
Yeah, you wanted to talk about something about
COVID. We should talk about that next time because we were talking about I don't remember what we were talking about earlier, but it made me think of relative risk. And my husband and I were talking about how, for some people now, I think that they have an inability to see the difference between relative risk and risk. Like,
right.
COVID is always going to be a risk, but what's the relative risk of it? Anyway, that's like a whole nother topic we could talk about sometime, but I just wanted to close with talking about the Universe 25 thing. I do think you said, you think for some people that spirit has died already. But
in some aspects of culture, in some communities, it's died. And my husband, and it's not just the poor.
Yeah.
I look at all these people who are like, all these rich people who are having abortions and who are having plastic surgery and who are having, all this stuff, and they're treating their kids like commodity. I won't use any names but you see them all the time in the news.
Yeah.
There's these rich people who are just self-absorbed, who are just so entitled, and who just seem to have really no reason to live other than to just gratify their ego constantly. That spirit has already died.
Yeah.
They don't have any concern about others. It's the only concern they have about others is, do others see me as beautifully as I want to be seen?
Yeah.
Do they adore me?
Are they serving me? Yeah. Are they serving me properly? But my husband the other day was saying, like, I can't remember what he exactly brought up, but he was saying basically, he's like, I wish there was like a thing where we could basically have, people raised according to complete leftist values, and complete like conservative values, and just have like that isolated societal thing where we could see it play out. And he said, oh yeah, that's called a family. And like, I really do feel like families, and not just families, but also like church communities and like our communities that we create for ourselves. Those we have the ability in those to tailor, like one of the beautiful things about being a parent is like, I get to have so much influence, especially at this point when my kids are young. I get to have so much influence over who my kids interact with and who my kids talk to and what my kids are exposed to. And it's hard because we have access to the internet at our house. My kids don't have that much access to screens, but they do have some. And it's like, there are always going to be things that they're going to be exposed to that I wish they wouldn't. Even just even having like, my extended family, there's behaviors that go on in my extended family on my husband's side and my side that I wish they wouldn't be exposed to. But day in and day out, I and my husband are the main influences of my children, and we get to influence them however we want, and we get to read them beautiful things and show them beautiful things and try to make them understand right from wrong, so that when they are exposed to those things, they can know this is right or this is wrong. And
having them be exposed to some of those things, especially in a way that's developmentally appropriate, helps them to grow up in a way that's not going to be naive and easily just crushed. They're going to be able to know that there's good and bad in the world, and and we all have a choice about where we go with the good and the bad. And that some people that we love are going to choose badly, and hopefully we will be able to help them through that. We will be able to forgive them, and hopefully at some point they can earn trust back.
And going back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the idea of reading, I think a beautiful thing about reading books is that you get to see people making choices, some good and some bad, and you get to see those consequences play out, and you get to be like, I don't want to do that because that did not turn out very well. I mean, that's a really important
the object lessons that are constantly being taught.
I mean, that's like right now, even just reading The Hobbit and starting, my daughter wants to read Lord of the Rings, but she's not quite ready for that yet. But I mean, like, there are some serious lessons to learn from those stories of like greed and where greed will take you, and like,
humility and service,
and sacrifice and all that stuff,
and how dangerous pride is. So I'm not like, I definitely believe in the idea of kind of like vaccinating your kids against reality. I mean, you have to give them a dose of that
in a measured way to prepare them for what they're gonna encounter later.
That's what fairy tales and nursery rhymes have always been about.
Mm-hmm. You read the Grimm's fairy tales and they're like, wow, these are hardcore stories that are not
there was some seriously selfish, nasty people that these kids had to learn how to deal with.
Yeah. But that's important stuff. So I do think, even we've had one of the benefits of having, I was pretty young when we got married and started having kids, is that like I have lots of grandparents who are still alive, and my husband has grandparents who are still alive, but we've had 2 grandparents who my kids got to know like die in the last 2 years now. And I think that death, like exposing my kids to death, like it's not something like my husband and I are very open about.
Great grandparents, 2 great
my children's great grandparents. Yeah, they're my grandparents and my husband's grandparents. Right. It's important for me to be like, people do die, and that, like even though my kids have had a hard time accepting that at some points, like people do die, and we took my kids to the cemetery. My dad has a cemetery on his property. We took my kids to a cemetery and prayed for the dead, we pray with my kids every day. And a lot of the times my kids will pray for their great grandparents who have died. And it's like, it's important for them to understand that this life is finite. Like, you are not going to live forever in this world. But that's why our choices matter, and the consequences of our choices matter, because we're not going to live forever. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to end on a hopeful note of saying, like, I do think there are some sections of society that I look at and they make me really sad. Like, there's things that happen in the world that are really just make me feel like it's hopeless, like that spirit has died. But I do think that has died.
Let me just interject here for a second. What the whole Universe 25 reminded me of is just the idea that well-meaning people can do things for other people that will completely ruin somebody's life.
Yeah.
If you don't let people learn how to do things for themselves and learn how to be their best self and learn how to be strong and learn how to be resilient, you're robbing them of the opportunity to really be strong, resilient, capable people.
Yeah.
It's like the old story about the little girl who was watching the chickens hatch, and she was watching some of them break out of the eggs, and they would have to struggle. And there was one that was just not being able to, it seemed to be really struggling, and she helped to crack open the egg, so that to help out the baby chick, and that baby chick died. And she asked, I helped it out, why did it die? And it's like, that chick has to exert a certain amount of energy and show a certain amount of spirit of wanting to live in order to be able to be strong enough to live.
Yeah.
That if it doesn't do that, it's not going to be able to make it.
Yeah.
And there are certain hormones and things that come with that struggle, which is why, you worry about some births, all these C-sections and stuff, where kids don't have to go through that birth process.
Yeah.
Are we cheating them of the opportunity to be stronger people? What are we doing? So there's unintended consequences by well-meaning people, and that's what
my husband and I were talking about
this. That's what socialism is.
Yeah. My husband and I were talking about this
consequences by well-meaning people that don't respect human nature and don't respect the value of suffering, the value of work, the value of effort, the value of selflessness, they don't respect those things.
This might be like a conversation for another episode because it might go into something.
Probably is.
But my husband and I were talking last night about trigger warnings. Because I was saying, like, there's somebody who I
is that really how the world works?
Well, I was talking about okay, I was talking about there's somebody I follow on Instagram who her baby died last year, and she basically said, like, please don't message me about babies dying, about like about what happened or whatever, because I'm not ready to talk about it yet. Like, I still have PTSD. I'm in therapy trying to work through it. And I said, like, I can kind of understand why some people would put trigger warnings on things, because there are people who are in the midst of working through things like that, where she's not ready to handle that. But at the same time, like, because he's reading a book. At the
same time, the best therapy is to become a part of a group who talks about what that experience is like, and knowing you're not alone, knowing that it's not personal, knowing that it's not something that's only going to happen to you, knowing that it's a rare occurrence, but it does happen. It's heartbreaking, but you accept it and you deal with it and you move on and you regain hope and you try again at some point.
Yeah, because my husband's reading a book by Jonathan Haidt right now, and he was talking about how these universities are, which is basically the socialist mindset, are creating people who are the complete opposite of successful human beings, because they have no resilience, they have no challenges to their thoughts and ideas, and they're never challenged in any way to be uncomfortable or to think about things that they don't like. And so they just have no ability to function in the world. And they
have no ability to put things into perspective. We were watching, your mom and I were watching a lot of football yesterday because it's lousy weather and because there was a lot of pretty good football on. We were watching one of the games and the home team was losing, and there were people in the stands just weeping profusely. And it's like, it's a game, people. And the same thing happened when I watched the national championship game. There were people there who were like just devastated.
Yeah.
It's like, get a life. I mean, this is not a tragedy.
Yeah.
This is not anywhere near a tragedy. Is it a disappointment? Yes.
Yeah.
How do you handle disappointment? Weeping profusely, gnashing and tearing of clothes and pulling out your hair and I can't stand it. It's too awful. I'm traumatized.
Yeah.
Don't tell me who won the game because I'm triggered.
But yeah, I mean,
be triggered. All right. Welcome to the world. Welcome to Earth. Enjoy your time. I
mean, like, exposure therapy is a good thing, and there's an argument for like a graduated, like, when something truly awful, not losing a football game, but when something truly awful happens, like you have a death or you have a serious crime happen against you or whatever, like, I think there's an argument for like a gradual exposure to those things. But an exposure is what is going to cure you of those things. It's not being sheltered from those things forever.
Exactly. Did I ever tell you the Zen story about the widow whose son dies, whose adult son dies?
I don't know. You can tell it again.
She's a widow. She has only one son, and her adult son dies. So she's tremendously vulnerable. She has nobody to help her in the world, and she's just desperate. So she goes to the Buddha and she says to the Buddha, "Oh, mighty Buddha, I do believe that you have the spiritual power to raise my son again, if you so will it." And he's like, "Oh, crap. What am I going to do now?" And so he comes up with this genius idea. He says, I want you to go and find me and get me a stone. I want a stone from a home where there has been no grief, where there has been no loss, where they haven't lost anybody. That's all I'm asking. Just a simple stone. You can pick it up from their yard on the way out after you find out that they don't have anybody who died. So she says, easy peasy. I'm heading out. And she starts trucking it down the road, stopping at every house saying, hey, guys, I need a stone from your yard. All I need to know is that nobody in your house has ever died. And it's like, I'm sorry, sister, but it's Uncle Pete died last year. He drank himself to death. He's, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh crap. Well, I can't use your stone. Keeps heading on. Short story long. She eventually comes to realize this is life.
Everybody's had loss.
This is life.
Yeah.
I've lost somebody and it hurt me badly, but so has everybody else. Get over it. Quit feeling sorry for yourself and live your life.
But also the beauty in that is that we aren't alone, and we can empathize with other people and form a community and be like,
yeah.
Like there's a person I follow on Instagram who's a child psychologist, and she says like so much of children's scariness when they're having big feelings is feeling alone in that feeling, and feeling like I am so alone right now. And it is very helpful for kids to be like, sometimes I feel so angry that I want to hit my sister too. Like sometimes I feel so angry that I just want to scream and I can't, knowing that they're not alone makes that less scary. And that's a beautiful thing.
It's interesting because your kids are always asking me, tell me a story about when you were a kid.
Yeah.
They want to know how I handled things when I was a kid. And so I tell them stories about, when things were tough.
Yeah.
And stuff, but there's been times when I was afraid and I worried a lot about things, and, I wasn't sure things were going to work out, but they all did,
My youngest right now, it's weird, like now having a new youngest, but my middle child now, her recent thing is like she's afraid of bugs in her bed at night. Like she wakes up in the night and she's afraid. So I made her, I was like, clearly we kept telling her there's no bugs in your bed. We would check and there's no bugs and whatever, but that didn't do anything to help her. And what finally helped her was
she needs to have something she can do.
Yep. I made her spider spray. So I put some essential oils in water in a sprayer, and I gave it to her, and it's right by her bed. And now she sprays her bed every night before she goes to bed with the spider spray. And I always say, if you wake up and you feel like there's bugs, you can just spray the spider spray.
Spray it.
And now she hasn't woken up crying since then. So anyway,
she feels a mastery over it. She's got a role that she can fulfill. Yep. And now she is a master of something and has a reason to live. Yeah. She's not part of Universe 25 where she's just withering away.
All right, we should wrap this up because we've been going for a while, but
that's enough. Man, I got crap on my shirt. What is that?
You're like me, but this little one he spits up more than any baby we've had before.
I used every shirt I used to have had baby spit.
I just bought a couple of new dresses at the thrift store earlier in the month. And
were they pre-stained on the shoulders?
This one is this one had no stains, and now there's stains all over it that I can't get out from him just spitting up on me. It's like, thanks, bud. I just bought this. Anyway, with that, we should.
That's the white stains of selflessness.
Yeah, exactly.
It's being washed in the vomit of the baby. It makes you a cleaner person.
Yeah, hopefully it'll make my heavenly garment whiter. We'll see.
It does.
All right.
Francis said so.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you gleaned something from this conversation. And
it was a long conversation, wasn't it?
I know we've been talking a long time.
Okay. Might need to be a 2-parter or something.
Maybe. Yeah, I could do that. We will, hopefully record another episode. You know, I'm shooting for once a month. That's my goal.
All right.
So.
That's cool.
But maybe we'll do 2 this month because I'll break this into two parts. So we'll see.
Yeah, write down that you want to go back to this relative risk thing. So.
I'll send you an email. Okay. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good week.
Bye, everybody. God bless.
Stay safe.
Take care.